We've got a log here from David Cheney, who's asking for some feedback on his first log. One of the things he says is that his stick movements seem really small and asking about oscillations. We'll look through and see if we see any oscillations. Um, also, Dave, you say you've got 25 degrees up tilt on your GoPro. I'm going to assume that you've got the same amount of up tilt on your FPV camera. You've got an Impulse RC Alien 5-inch, nice frame, 5x4x3 props, so they're going to be putting out plenty of power. Cobra 2204, 2300 kV motors, little BESCs with BLHeli, doesn't say which BLHeli version, probably a recent version. Tornado flight controller with Betaflight, and a Tattoo 4S75C 1800 milliamp hour battery. So you really have top-notch equipment here. If there's anything wrong with your flight performance, it's not because you didn't spec good equipment. So we should be able to get the absolute most out of this setup. Let's take a look at it. I have got your PID and gyro traces up for pitch and roll, and I'm mostly going to be looking at the P trace to start with. The most obvious tuning problems will be seen on the P trace if you have excess P gain. Problems with I tuning are a little harder to figure out or notice if you're just watching a video, if you don't have a specific complaint from a pilot, or if you're not actually flying it. Eye gain problems have to be pretty egregious before you can really look at a video and go, oof, eye gain is way off. And as for the gyro, with people running Betaflight, I don't look at the gyro as much anymore because Betaflight does such a good job of filtering it. If you go back to my earlier videos, you'll see that nearly every one of them I start by checking the gyro to see if there's excess vibration, excess noise in the copter, and I just don't really feel like that's necessary anymore. Let's take a look at your fly. Okay, so right off the bat, your motor sounds smooth, right? I don't see any immediate signs of excess P gain. Your stick movements are relatively small, as you said. It's hard to judge, whether they're too small. If you watch the stick overlays on my YouTube channel, there is an overlay of Final Glides, one of Final Glide's flights, and the top pilots often have a lot of expo and a lot of rates, and their stick movements during normal non-aggressive flight are often very, very small. So are yours too small? Well, it's really a matter of feel. It's really up to you. My approach is that I set my rates to control how fast I want the copter to go when I do a full deflection flip or roll. So if I do a full deflection roll and I think the copter should be spinning faster, I increase my rates. And then I use expo to control how sensitive the copter is during sort of normal flight. Okay, so if I feel like the copter is too twitchy during normal flight, I will not decrease my rates because then that'll make my flips and rolls slower and less awesome, right? If I feel like my copter is too twitchy during normal flight, I'll increase the expo. And my expo right now, I think, is around 0.65, which when I first heard of somebody like, I think I first saw a video of Sharpoo, and he said he flew with 70% expo. And I thought, oh man, that is so much expo. How do you even do that? And the way you do that is that your stick is basically in two modes. When you're flying normally, the stick is deflecting, maybe as much as 25% off center, and that's your sort of normal flight mode. And then when you're doing a flip or a roll, you go all the way through the sort of expo zone into full deflection, and you go super fast. And so that huge amount of expo is just to create a relatively flat part of the curve where you can do normal flight. And then the very, very steep part of the curve toward full deflection is you've got no resolution there. It's just going super fast. But that's okay because when you're using that part of the stick travel, you want to be going super fast. So I would say that if you feel like you are too sensitive at center stick, don't decrease your rates, but increase your expo. And when your expo gets up in the range of 0.6 or 0.7, that's where you start thinking, okay, maybe my expo shouldn't go any higher than that, or I'm going to be, you don't want to surprise yourself with expo. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you mean to do a gentle turn and suddenly, whoa, the copter flips out, right? So eventually you'll get too much expo and you'll get an uncontrollable state. But if your expo isn't up in the range of 50, 60, 70, something like that, you're probably not there yet. So that's what I would say. On the other hand, if you're doing flips and rolls and you want the copter to move slower during the flips and rolls, then decrease your rates. So now you're about to increase your throttle a little bit. And as you do that, I'm going to listen for oscillations and watch your P term again to see if any oscillations start to happen. And your motor still sounds super smooth. And I've taken out your pitch just so we can see roll better. And in fact, let's just look just at the P term so we can really see it. Not a lot of movement on your P term, no crazy oscillations. So now let's look forward, and I see here is a high throttle part. Let's listen again there. So I can just, and I don't know if this is going to come through because I'm playing back through my speakers and I'm recording through my microphone. I don't know if this is going to come through, but I can just barely start to hear some harmonics of some kind of oscillation here when you go to high throttle. And again, we don't really see a lot of activity in the P term, but if you just listen, you can just start to barely hear the warble of some kind of oscillation. And if we bring up your motors trace, I'll bet we can see something happen there. Yeah, so let's see. The motors are spooling up right here. A little bit of oscillation probably is here. Here is what I'm hearing, I bet. And I bet if we play it back slowly, we'll see that that's the point where the oscillation is. No, it's more like here is where it was. Yeah. But if we look at your motors, I mean, there's not a lot of noise or jaggedness here. If we watch right here, they call them the angry Pac-Mans, where these motor graphs, these pi graphs are just opening and closing, slamming shut. And you can see they're not. They're not doing the angry Pac-Man thing. If you think of the Pac-Man's mouth where it's opening and closing, they're not doing that. The motors are really, there's not a lot of noise in your motor traces. The motors are really well behaved. Here we're coming down again. So I got to tell you, I got no complaints. I wish I had something dramatic to share with you. I don't see any sort of weird or excess oscillation in your P terms. Let's just glance at your yaw, just on principle. I think there's probably not going to be much there. We'll glance at your yaw. Nah, see? I mean, there's movement in the P term, but that's normal. There's not any sort of hard oscillations or anything. And I don't hear any oscillations or any signs of bad tune. So I think if you like the way it flies, just keep flying it. Maybe tweak your rates or your expos so your sticks feel a little bit more like you expect. And, happy flying. Hope it was helpful. Bye.